most of the time I'd walk on a set and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I got an address the night before, and I show up and say, give me like an hour and a half. We'll light the scene. And so what happens in the scene? So you guys there's like 2 scenes in the movie. All 3 of them are like walking in the French Quarter, and they're drunk, and he says the same story twice. And we shot that originally because he didn't like the first version of it. So he's like, let's shoot it again. And then when we finished it, he was like, oh no, we just put both scenes in the movie. He's like, we let audience decide which one is better. I'm probably like the closest person who could like actually speculate about what happened, and I don't even know.
Hello, welcome to our show. This is something that we have never done before, and we're really excited to be doing this with you and to try to just get the let out and get like some formalities out of the way. Do you want to introduce yourself and kind of tell us who you are and what you do?
For sure. My name is Christian Schultz. I am currently in New Orleans, Louisiana, where I live most of my time. The other part of the year, I'm in LA, which I think you guys are in LA, right?
Long Beach, yeah.
Yep,
but close enough.
Yeah, I would never make that drive myself, but you guys do what you will, you know? I am a film director by trade, movies, commercials, music videos, everything, but the reason we're here today is I happen to be the cinematographer for a movie called Big Shark by Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, I guess to kind of start, like, to tell the story, I guess, how did you reach that point? I think for a lot of people.
A lot of this podcast is going to be me just laughing my fucking ass off. So just get ready.
What led you to that point to being on set on Big Shark?
I think, like, the long form answer is a little bit different than I think really how simple it was. But a friend of mine who's also a producer in town who produced my feature film called Presence that came out 2 years ago through XYZ, I guess gave him my number, but there was no context given before. There was no like, you know, hey dude, someone's gonna, you know, Tommy's gonna call you or anything like that. So I'm just sitting exactly where I am right now, and I get a call from this number in LA, and it said something like Tommy something, but it wasn't Tommy Wiseau, but it just came up like Tommy something. You know how like like Verizon or whatever, like guess who the name is? So I answer it, and like, hello, and it's fucking Tommy's voice on the other line. And he was basically like, hi, are you, he was very like broken up about it too. He was kind of like in a rush, which is like very much works. But he was like, so-and-so, give me your number. Would you, I'm looking for a cameraman in New Orleans for a movie. And I was just like, sorry, who is this? He's like, oh, sorry, my name is Tommy Wiseau. And I was just like, this is like not real.
This is a prank. Yeah, you're like, one of my friends is pranking me.
Right.
Were you familiar with Tommy by this point? Like, did you?
Of course.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
everybody has like a story of like, okay, my friend introduced me to this movie, and that's really what it was. I probably watched it for the first time when I was 16, and just fell in love with the lore of it, you know, and then I think, you know, this was obviously well after the Disaster Artist, so the lore has just like grown,
expanded.
You know? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, he literally called me. I didn't believe it for like a long time, and then we exchanged emails, and he sent me like, I believe it was like an NDA, like right out the gate.
Right,
you know?
Of course, very on brand.
Yeah, and we were shooting like 2 weeks later.
Oh shit!
I think what happened. And I'll be totally honest with you, like, I still, you know, this it's a very long version, but, like, I don't know if I'm credited as the editor of the movie, but I actually edited the movie for him.
What?
What?
Yeah. Maybe there's not even credits on the movie right now.
There isn't actually.
There isn't. No,
Yeah.
he makes the joke in our review that it ends like Apocalypse Now.
Yeah. Just ends.
Yeah,
It just ends.
No credits.
which is like so Tommy too, to be like, oh, it doesn't need credits, you know.
It's art.
Just let it stand on its own. Yeah, everyone made.
There's
this
not even
movie.
like beginning credits to the movie. There's not even like a couple names at the beginning.
I'm struggling to
logo pops
remember.
up? His logo pops up.
His logo and then the title. I think that's it. I want to say that's it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that sounds familiar.
I would go as far as to say the movie is about probably 90% of what I edited. And I'm sure somebody finished it in LA with him.
Right.
You know, he, you know, and the end of that is a very interesting story. That's kind of like, you know, a little bit of this is going to be like, I want to protect Tommy and me and his like relationship, but I also want to give like, obviously like good stories and good content, but there is like a little bit of a balance there because imagine sort of working with Tommy.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally that was it. He sent me an email. We were shooting 2 weeks later. I believe that he had a cinematographer that shot a couple days for the movie, and then they ended up not working. You know, it wasn't a relationship that wanted to continue.
Right.
And I came in in like pure Tommy fashion, like I'm so unqualified for this role. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't sell yourself short, dude. I thought that.
I thought the cinematography
Yeah,
was great.
the visuals stood out.
It's one of the best parts.
Yeah, I wouldn't sell yourself short at all. I thought that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I've shot most of my stuff. Like I also work with a lot of like world-class cinematographers, so I pick up little things here and there.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, this was me just being in love with Tommy from the get-go. You know, and
Yeah.
just being like, Tommy, I'll come fucking rub your back.
Yeah, whatever
yeah.
you need. What's the timeline look like of this? You know, there was that trailer that dropped in
Years ago.
Yeah, years ago. So was that closer to when that trailer dropped, or is this kind of more recent?
I'll say that we started shooting January or February of 2023.
Okay. Wow.
And so
What the hell? What?
Really?
Filmed all last year. That's crazy.
Yeah, so my friend Matt Bell actually shot that trailer maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I'm
Yeah,
not sure when
that makes sense.
but he was a cinematographer on that, and I don't know why they didn't ever call him back. I talked to him maybe a couple months after that, after we started shooting, and he was like, I didn't even know what was happening. And he's like an actual cinematographer, you know, like he's like, he like shoots movies and stuff.
Fascinating.
But yeah, we did. So how Tommy wanted to work on this movie specifically in terms of timing was, and I don't know why this was, but this just is how it. I have some guesses that I'm sure. Also, like, he would not condone me doing this interview in any way.
Right.
So I love this right now. Just saying that. Like, him, like, knowing that he would hate this is like bringing me so much joy right now. We would shoot for 1 to 2 weeks at a time, and then we would break for maybe 3-4 weeks, and we'd shoot another 4 days, and then we'd break for another 3.5 weeks. We'd shoot for another week, and then we did that for 7 months, on and off. So in total, I think we probably shot 40 days, maybe.
Okay.
Something like that.
And this is running around the streets of oh my god,
New Orleans.
New Orleans. I don't know why I forgot the name of one of the most iconic cities in America. But so yeah, running around the streets of New Orleans. That schedule actually explains a lot about the movie, actually. Just knowing that there's massive time jumps. So to rewind back a little bit. So Tommy calls you. We're shooting in 2 weeks. Does he send you a script later? Like how does he pitch the project and
related to that?
And
yes.
and yeah, I guess my question with like not to just like, you know, jump into it too much, but was there a script?
Yes, there was a script. and I still have it. I think I printed it out at one point. I wanted to like frame it somewhere. I even have, dude, I kept all my checks that he wrote for me.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I just like kept all this shit, dude, because I'm just like, I gotta tell people that this is fucking hilarious. But yeah, he sent me a script. There was a script, contrary to popular belief, but it was unfinished, and it remained unfinished for the entirety of the principal photography.
Yeah.
But it was beautiful, dude. Like it's his stream of consciousness, as you can imagine. And I don't know if I've ever even read like the Room script, but I can imagine it being very similar.
Yeah.
In the way where you're just like, this is like kind of language, you know? Like this is like, you know, like he's so good at like portraying like an alien's version of
reality.
humanity. I think what he pitched to me was like, you know, he had trailers for it. He had the trailer that, you know, we already talked about, and he had another trailer that ended up becoming the trailer that everybody has seen, like that he's putting out and stuff, which has nothing to do with the movie. I'm sure you guys figured that out.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I think they came into New Orleans and shot, or maybe it was even in LA, where they shot like a whole trailer that was just like, okay, we're shooting a teaser trailer, and it's like all these scenes that have like characters from the movie, but like they never actually, nothing in that trailer happens in them. Is like nothing.
There's a lot of focus on boxing.
Yeah.
With Raoul.
You're right. So he just like sent me all these trailers and gave me like the pitch. You know, it's these three friends who are heroes in New Orleans, and they have to save Sadie from Shark, and that's it.
That's the plot.
That is the plot. Yeah.
And like you really wouldn't hope for anything more.
Yeah.
You know, at least I'm like, I asked for the script, and I think for the first 2 weeks of shooting, like that, really like that first, I think it was a week and a half of shooting where we shot a lot of scenes. I took it really seriously.
Yeah.
And I would say I took it really seriously the entire time. Like it was run very much like a professional movie, at least on my end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say like, I was like, okay, what are the sides for this day? Like, what are we shooting? And there was no shot listing that he was providing or anything. So I would like, that was my job. That's what he communicated to me was like, you know, very early on, I would try to collaborate with him and be like, Tommy, what do you think about doing like an over here? And then we do an over here. Like, and he's like, sure, like whatever, you know? It was like very much up to me to
figure
really
out the details. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, if there was a shot list made or if you just had to fend for yourself.
Just the Wild West. Now, I did just to like humor the inner camera nerd in me. What are you shooting on, and was there any like thought process that went into that that's interesting? Or
so, as you know, like Tommy owns all of his own stuff,
right?
So he owns a Alexa Mini LF.
Oh wow,
which
is
is
not a cheap camera.
Which is a very, very nice camera, and I was excited to shoot on it. He also owns lenses that are very rare that are called Zeiss B speeds. And if you look these up, if you know the Zeiss B speeds, you know that they actually don't work on the LF. The LF sensor is much
too
larger.
Big. Right.
It's too big. So you have to get lenses specifically designed for the LF, which are usually like anamorphics or, you know, wide sensor cameras that they're making now. We're using sensors or lenses that were made for smaller sensors, which meant that we could only use a certain like number of lenses from the B speeds, you know? So like, there's a lot of wide shots where shot on like the widest lens that we could, but they ended up cutting out because it would just vignette all over it would vignette like half the frame because they're not designed to shoot those. And I was asking like repeatedly, like, Tommy, can I get some different lenses or something? It's going to look much better if we, can use the entire sensor and all this stuff. And he's like, no.
That is
what we
the most Tommy thing I think I've ever heard is buying the most expensive camera he can and then really expensive vintage lenses, but not doing the research to know that the sensor, like they just don't cover that sensor size.
Right. Even the way that it was very specific too, that every single day we had to break down the camera.
Yeah.
Which normally, like on a normal movie set, the AC would break it down to a degree, but put it in cases, and you know they would keep it, whether it's like in a locked garage or whatever. You don't break it down completely because the next day you're going to come, you got to rebuild everything.
Yeah.
So it was also very specific that he left with the lenses in the camera completely broken down, so that he could take them to his hotel room and no one else could fuck with it.
Right.
Which made it a lot harder on my AC and stuff.
Yeah.
But the way that he didn't have sort of proper like Pelican cases and stuff. So like what he wanted us to do was, and I have pictures of this somewhere, but he makes Wiseau branded Ziploc bags.
Like, Ziplocs?
Ziplocs?
Yeah, like these like really nice like gallon-sized Ziploc bags. And for like the first like couple days, I was like, "Oh, why are we putting them in these bags?" And then I eventually like picked one up and I read it, and it says like Tommy Wiseau Productions, like yada yada, like all these like really fine branded like Ziploc bags.
Yeah. And
then I start looking at every other thing around, like it's all fucking branded, dude, with what, and I'm like, this dude's a fucking genius.
What
bro.
the
like,
hell?
It's all his,
every
dude.
single thing is Wiseau branded.
That is crazy.
What?
But we would just like put the lenses in these Ziploc bags and roll them up and put them in his backpack, and the camera would be put into a backpack, and then he would just carry it to the hotel room, and then the next day we'd have to rebuild it like piece by piece.
He's not toured.
Which I know if you guys have shot movies before, if anybody shot, like you know, that's just tedious to do every single day.
I mean, half the time we
how
just leave our camera completely assembled. We'll just throw it in the car, and because that's just work I don't want to do.
You put it in a coffin, as they say, you know, which is like a container of some sort, and you like leave it built, you know. But that's what he wanted to do.
I was surprised at how shallow the depth of field was consistently, and also, you know, this is props to whoever was pulling focus. I thought like there was very few moments that I caught focus being missed, so that was very well done on your
especially
part.
with how like what seemed to be very improvised and very intoxicated actors to be able to pull that. It seemed like it could have been a lot of work on whoever was pulling focus.
Yeah, I'll say this. I'll give a shout out to my whole crew, like Tyler Laperouse, who was my first AC, who is an absolute pro. I mean, he does his credits are extreme, you know. That was kind of the cool thing about this movie, was everybody was so enamored that they were there on a Tommy Wiseau movie.
Yeah.
That they didn't take other jobs that would be paying them more money, that would like actually sort of more like professional jobs, to come and do this movie like on a whim, you know? And it was me sort of convincing them that like, yo, it's like, it's real. Like it's Tommy, like it's exactly how you think it's going to be. And you just got to come do it, man. So I had all these like really like pro guys and girls on the crew that just wanted to come and do the movie, you know? So like, as much as, you know, it is sort of a contrast of, you know, there's a lot of improv and a lot of sort of, you don't really know what, most of the time I'd walk on a set and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, what are we shooting? I got an address the night before, and I show up and say, okay, all right, give me like an hour and a half. I'll throw stuff, we'll light the scene. And so what happens in the scene? So you guys are, okay. And it was really like film school. We really didn't know, like, I never went to film school. Like, I couldn't afford to go to film school. So like I imagine this is as close as it could get to like sort of like people who really had great intentions and like, but there's just no like goal, you know.
I can tell you from experience that is 100% of film student sets. Like that is just how it works. You show up, you have a script. They don't know that they're supposed to prepare you the day before of what scene they're shooting where. It's just, hey, we're going to my aunt's house. She has a living room that's open. She will be making dinner in the next room. To me, it's just a testament to, like, I think that what you said about everyone like being excited and happy to work on a Tommy Wiseau film, one that completely comes across in the movie. I think like you see it, and I think we even talked about it in our review that like comparing it to The Room, it felt like there was a bigger understanding of kind of what everyone was getting into, and more fun was had on the production of it.
My biggest like question that I had going into it was like, is he going to be aware of himself more so this time? You know what I mean? And the fact that it changes the dynamic a little bit where everybody on the crew is aware of who he is, you know, where he didn't have that. I would count it as sort of a not a downfall, but like a beautiful accident that like The Room was made without anybody being aware of his genius or whatever you want to call it, you know? Okay, everybody knows who this motherfucker is. He knows who he is. And is he going to be trying to recreate some magic that happened? And very, very quickly, I understood that it's not something. He's aware of how people view him, and he's very good at like interacting with people when they do know him. I mean, dude, just imagine walking down Bourbon Street with Tommy Wiseau, and people are like coming out of fucking restaurants because they're like freaking that they're like they saw a unicorn. You know what I mean? It's so much more about the way that he makes movies than I think that he can't get away from, which makes it that sort of beautiful, like everything's an accident and nothing makes sense, but it's all perfect sort of thing. And I'll say this like wholeheartedly, he does not try to do that. It just is. And it's like really shocking to see in person and like witness it, where like you really have to go through the gauntlet of one of his productions to like understand what I'm really talking about, because it's it just like put a lot of those fears that I had in my head like to bed, because like he can't get away from the way that he makes movies, you know, and he's so genuine about he like there's tons of stories even from like The Room, but even from this movie where like, you know, his audition process is ridiculous, where he'll just start like berating people in the middle of their scene to like get this like best audition. He's like, you know, I've talked to like, you know, all the actors on this movie have stories of like their audition process, and apparently it's like this crazy sort of thing where he's just like yelling at you, like trying to throw you off. And
I sincerely hope we get to interview them at some point. That would be incredible.
Yeah. That was my biggest question going into it. It was like, is he going to be aware of this? And like coming out of it, I'm like, he can't not just be him, you know?
Yeah.
It's really awesome. It's really the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Well, and even hearing you tell stories about the set, it sounds like he's incapable of it. Like, it sounds like it's not even possible for Tommy Wiseau, even if he is aware. It sounds like
there's nothing he can do about it.
There's nothing he could even do about it. I mean, because I think for us, we had the exact same fear going into
the movie.
Shark.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talked about in our review was we kind of had like a working concept. This is like, I guess, film analysis a little bit, is that the movie is really trying to portray what it's like to be intoxicated. How accurate is that reading of the movie to you?
No, I don't think it's about that at all. I think when it comes to analysis, dude, it's so fun, obviously, to like make up sort of like, oh, this is the intention. You got to get rid of all of that. There is no intention at all. I think it comes down to as simple as Tommy wanted to be drinking in every scene.
Now, is that real alcohol? Is he pounding actual White Claws or?
That's the funny thing is Tommy's like a real straight edge sober guy. I don't know if he's older too, man. Like he may be on certain medication for whatever, or like, there was even one time where there was like a party scene at the house where they're like playing beer pong. We had bought all these like Heineken, like non-alcoholic drinks for him, and we like took the labels off or whatever. But they're in the fridge because there was also people staying there. It was an Airbnb. Like half the cast was staying there while we were shooting. Yeah. Which we pulled no permits for.
Of course.
There was also like regular beer in the fridge, and Tommy got a hold of one by accident. And he was drinking it in the scene, and then he had another, and then he was like, does this have alcohol in it? Like he started to get drunk like very, very quickly. And it like hit him really hard. He was like, oh no. But yeah, Tommy is like a absolute straight edge dude.
So he's stone cold sober.
Stone cold.
That's crazy.
Like
no the other actors.
Yeah, was anybody else drinking? Like what? I mean, I assume it's professional, but I just feel like I need to ask.
Everybody else was having a good time playing.
Okay.
In the movie,
okay.
Sure. But I would say this: there was not one moment where anything. It was more like the guy who plays Tim. His name's Isaiah. Like, I think for him, he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be method today and fucking have a fiance." That was his excuse. There was no moment where it was weird or people were actually getting intoxicated or anything. I think most of the time, it was really just us trying to get through the night. Because I think I would say 90% of this movie is at night. So if you can imagine, so like 45 days or maybe even closer to 50 days, dude, with all the pickups and stuff. We're like 45 to 50 days of like overnights,
Yeah.
There was not a lot of people like trying to cut up at that late. It's like 3 a.m. and you're like just starting. You're like just trying to survive,
For sure. Yeah.
But yeah, Tommy's stone sober. But I don't know, in terms of like the characters and stuff, dude, I think that's just his version of New Orleans people as well. If you're in New Orleans, you're drinking and you're on bourbon, drinking, you're day drinking, you're like, you're walking out of the house with a fucking bottle of beer, which that is like, if you've ever been to New Orleans, like you'll know that like you can drink outside, you can walk outside of a bar, but they have to put it in a paper cup or like a plastic cup. You can't carry bottles around. For sure. And we brought that up to him like a bunch of times, and he was like, no, it's fine. Because they just always have like bottles of beer, which is like very illegal in New Orleans. But he was just like, no, this is New Orleans. But in terms of it meaning, metaphorically, like we wanted to capture the feeling to be intoxicated, like no.
There is a shot, and I think I may have called it the best comedic shot of all time in any film I've ever seen. And it's actually 2 shots. I won't, it's not just one, which is why it's so magical. But it's the 2 shots while Tommy's girlfriend is throwing his clothes from the balcony, and you have that shot looking down at him, and he's just holding a White Claw in one hand, and just like...
Yeah.
Great shot. First off, amazing shot. That is so funny. So how does that shot come to be? It sounds like you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants, but is it just complete necessity?
I'm so glad you brought up that scene, because if there's one scene in the movie that I would tell a story about and how funny it is, it would be this scene specifically. That scene was so important to Tommy for some fucking reason, dude. And I think looking back at it now, we were all doubting him on how funny and like how good of a scene it actually was. but he just saw that like, no, this is like, we have to nail this. And dude, the shot of him is really me just going like, okay, I need a master. I know like I need like kind of a OTS, like looking up at her, and then I'm going to get like a profile of her. And then I need this, just that. It was like pretty simple. You know, there really wasn't that, you know, much intention behind like, oh, this shot specifically is going to be funny. I think it works in a lot of different ways because he's giving such a performance, like just like yelling up. It was as much as like it was as close to like a "You're Tearing Me Apart" scene as we could get, you know. But we can't. I think that we shot that scene very early on, finished it, and then he was like right away. He was like asking me to like make cuts of it.
Oh,
and because I would basically shoot all day. Mm-hmm. And then I'd come home, dump footage for him, and like start editing stuff at night.
Jeez.
And then, or like in the morning, whenever we get off.
Yeah.
And then, you know, send him like a rough version of whatever I could do in like 2 to 3 hours. And then we'd go shoot again, you know, the next day. So we shot that scene, and it was like beautiful. It was like this sort of like late afternoon, or like, yeah, it was like sunset. You know, like the location they had was a little weird, but like it was like a beautiful like lighting in turn. You know, natural lighting as good as we can get. It was beautiful. And then I showed it to him, and he was like, "I hate it. We got to reshoot it."
Oh God!
And then so we go back. I think we didn't shoot it again because we had already booked a bunch of locations for the rest of that week. We came back the next month, shot it again. And the next month, it's like, now we're getting into like, you know, September probably. And like the weather's changed. Like now it's overcast.
Yeah.
And so we shoot it all again, exactly the same. He does the performance exactly the same. I go back and I edit it together for him, send it to him. Hates it. We need to reshoot it. So we end up going again 3 weeks later. And now it's like almost raining in the scene.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay.
We shoot the whole thing very quickly now, like because it's about to rain, and we didn't get you know, we were hoping that we would get like sort of a sunset thing so that it would match, you know, because like as an editor, I'm sitting here going like, okay, if we get the time of day correct, I can technically use like one shot from this time, and then I could use another one from this time. But now they're all mismatched. And then I edit it together, send it to him, doesn't like it. We shoot it a 4th time. And this time he wants to change his outfit. So now he's wearing different clothes.
What?
And we're just standing there going like, Tommy, like all of the other versions, like you can't use them anymore because you're using this. Because you changed your clothes. And he's like, no one will notice. And so if you watch the movie, I don't know if it's in some of the and so in the end he asked me to edit them all together. He wanted to use this reaction. So if you watch the movie again, look at that scene, and there's shots that are overcast, there's shots that are beautiful sunset, there's shots where he's wearing white pants, and then there's a couple shots where he's not wearing those white pants. And then,
oh my God.
And I kept on bringing up this, like, Tommy, like, people are going to notice that this is, like, different. And
we all did not notice.
We're all stupid, though.
But it's the performance and the cinematography, dude, that completely distracts you in the storytelling. So Tommy was right. No one's going to notice.
He's like Stanley Kubrick. You don't notice.
That's like the most hurtful thing too, is like, yeah, it's true. They didn't fucking notice.
Tommy is just so engrossing that it's almost impossible to notice anything else when he's talking.
Yeah.
Ended up being a great scene. One of the best scenes in the movie.
I know, right? Which is like so annoying.
Yeah, I think I said it, you know, in our review that, like, you know, we do comedy stuff, or at least we try to all the time. I don't think I'll ever write a scene that's as funny as that. Like, it's just such an amazing scene. We were crying of laughter.
We were.
The fact it's all the detail.
And that wide, dude. That wide of her clothes flying out the door, like catching on the wire.
He's like leaning back with the White Claw in hand. Oh, it is so good. It's so good. That makes it even funny. We're actually gonna go see it again this Saturday in LA. So it's funny that the timing ended up working out like this because they have the screenings like once a month or whatever. So we're definitely going to be looking out for little details like that.
Dude, there's so many things in this movie. I'm sure, like, I'm trying to remember some of the other things that you guys brought up in that review. But that's why I was laughing my ass off, dude.
So the pigs, that whole sequence of events where you go to the barbecue man. Like, what is the story behind that?
Notice that was me?
Oh my god, that was you! What the fuck?
That's great.
Bro, that was me, dude. In pure Tommy fashion, somebody, like, he casted this guy, didn't show up. Or in, like,
oh, no.
15 minutes before we shot, he's like, Christian, can you do this scene? Like, have you ever acted before? And I was like, yeah, I can do it. And my AC ended up opping the camera, and he, like, brought me aside, like, showed me the script. And I've never acted before, but obviously, like, I directed a lot of actors. Like, I know.
And you're not missing this opportunity.
I'm not missing this fucking opportunity, dude. I was, like, prepping for it, and he came in, and he was like, okay, let's do this scene. And he just, like, set up a table. I, like, grabbed some kind of barbecue, like, thing. I was going to, like, flip a burger. He didn't even describe the scene. And I'm just, like, messing around with something. And I do the scene, and I get through it pretty okay. And then he has some other guy. Where we were shooting was, like, a campground. And somebody that was working at the campground, he just went and found him. So eventually it was me and this other guy who eventually became the butcher, which is the next scene.
The other guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but he was, like, pitting us against each other to see who was better to do this scene. And it was like, okay, now you go. And I would do it a little bit, and he'd go, no, you go. And then he would, like, kind of, it's, like, nerve-wracking. He would, like, kind of stumble through it. And he was like, okay, I choose Christian.
This sounds
like to make you better, dude.
It sounds like a twisted social experiment or something. It's just like...
Yeah, dude. The funniest bit about the pigs, to me, is just the writing of... I think he gets this thing stuck in his mind where he's like, I want a scene where we're all trying to catch a pig.
Yeah.
And I'm going to write it into... It's going to make sense whether it does or it doesn't. The funniest thing about that scene is they catch a pig, or they catch 3 pigs. Then they go to the butcher, and the butcher's like, I could butcher this one for you, but I already have one back here that's already done. Do you want to just take this one? So they just caught the pigs for no fucking reason because the guy already had one. And so they just took the one that was already butchered.
Well, they didn't know, dude.
So,
they didn't know.
They didn't ask him first.
He wanted it to feel so New Orleans, which barbecuing in New Orleans is not that big of a deal. You know, it's like his impression of, like, what New Orleans is like these like real kind of, like, down the earth fucking people, and they're, like, smoking their meats and, like, whatever. I'm like, dude, that's just not. It's like kind of it. It's like it's a version of it, you know, but, like, it's like the 5-year-old version of it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and it's thrown together in a way that's like, I want like pigs, and I want us to be running and trying to grab these pigs, and we'll make it make sense. We'll figure out a way, you know? Just how he fucking makes movies, man. I don't know.
That is beautiful.
I wouldn't expect anything less, honestly. Like
that is so funny to me. I think watching it, I don't know if this ended up in the final cut of the review, but I think watching it, like, our working theory was that because it feels so like almost separate from the rest of the movie. I almost thought that he just met somebody that owned a butchery or something and was just like, okay, we put you in movie now. And I thought that was a real butcher, to be honest. I thought it was like, this is a real smokehouse and
just someone he knew.
And it's just like, okay, you go in movie now.
No, dude, it wasn't, man. It was like, I think the butcher shop that we created was the serving area from a cafeteria, like that's the cafeteria that we were all eating in, and we were looking for like a butcher shop. We were like, do we go to this actual butcher shop? So someone drove over there and asked them if we could shoot, and they were like, no, we don't want to make it, we don't want to stop the business, whatever. So I'm looking around, and me and Tommy are looking around, and we're like, we could just like, let's just do it here, like just like turn everything this way and put the pig here, and like it's like, who gives a shit?
It lands completely.
Like,
I thought it was a real butcher shop.
Yeah. Same.
It's just film school, bro. It's just like,
Yeah.
What do we have? It's very much like, I don't know if you guys follow like the Duplass brothers or whatever. Like,
oh, for sure.
They always, the way that they make movies is kind of similar in a way where they just go like, what do I have accent to?
Yeah.
And then we'll design a movie around that. Whether it's like a really nice house or like a cabin in the woods, like, or if it's an office, like, what do I have access to? Because I need my budget to be so low that I can't pay for all these like normal locations,
Yeah.
Right.
And Tommy doesn't know another way. It wasn't like, oh, we wanted it to be legit. We didn't even try, like being legit was not an option,
Yeah.
So you really just have to keep your eyes open and go like, okay. And at the end of the process, like, I love Tommy, dude. Like, we still text all the time, and every time I'm in LA, we'll go to this like Jewish deli that he loves, and like at the end of it, I really started to be like, kind of like his spokesperson in a way, where people would come up to me and be like, disgruntled because there was no plan, or disgruntled because of this and that or whatever, and I'd be like, dude, like, this is what we signed up for, and we gotta, at the end of the day, like, our names are gonna be on this too. Apparently not, but at the end of the day,
not yet.
My name's gonna be on this, and like, I'm gonna be his whisperer if I need to, because he doesn't, the way he communicates is different than anybody else on planet Earth. It really is. And you kind of have to be in tune with him. And you could very easily root against him because he's hard to work with. And he's very demanding and whatever. But at the end of the day, I think I at least made a choice to just never be upset with him. And to always try and be inside of his head and like really root for him and make it as good as he wanted it to be. Because I was there, I'm like, what else am I going to do but try to make this thing as badass as it could be? What am I just going to be mad that it's like not legit? We've been here for 6 months. It hasn't changed. So like, it's more of like me, like going like, dude, this is a butcher shop, like we could do it. And he's like, oh yes. And then that's what works,
I think that is beautiful. I think I am so glad that you had that mindset, because
we would probably have the exact same mindset.
I think it comes across like I think we say in the review, like, it just seems like everyone's just trying to make Tommy's vision work. Like, it feels like everyone is in support of the movie, which is wonderful.
And I think that a person with a worse mindset could have been like laughing behind his back, or like, almost exploiting the situation in a way, which I think is also crappy. And I'm glad that Tommy had someone like you that was on set and was able to be like,
just make it happen.
Make it happen. Yeah, be the person that's willing to make it happen. And I mean, like, we tell a story in our review where we used to see Tommy almost on a yearly basis for like 3 years. There was the LA Comic-Con was a smaller convention called Kamikaze. And every year it would just be Tommy's there, and he's sitting in this little corner with Raoul. And so it was like a yearly tradition. We'd go there and just chat with him and Raul. And I think that that's something that feels like across a lot of the stories that we hear about Tommy, like from The Room to just talking with Raul to talking with you, is that it seems like you have to have that kind of open mindset of like understanding that he communicates differently. And if you're able to flow with it and just like recognize that, yeah, it's different and it might be a little bit frustrating, then it ends up, you're able, if you're able to push through it, you get to something kind of unique and kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think back on like I feel so hard for those guys and girls that were like on The Room who again had no context for him at all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you could just so easily be like, this guy is absolutely insane, you know? And I think, you know, to go back to an earlier point, like that is sort of the saving grace of him being so popular and having so much like lore behind him, is now you get to make that choice. Whereas before you would just be confused, you know, you would be so confused. But now luckily you get to like go into every day and be like, I gotta choose to fucking be here today, you know, and I'm gonna serve this guy because I think he's literally a unicorn, you know, and I just want to I want to see him succeed, you know.
Yeah. And I guess I feel like I had some more specific on-set questions, but I wanted to ask kind of about the cast a little bit. I adored the cast. All the main cast members I thought were so fun, and I think that they're part of the reason why it feels like so many people were having a fun time on set. But I wanted to ask if you had any like kind of on-set stories, maybe with any of the supporting cast around Tommy that were kind of fun, anything that you'd be willing to share.
I think for sure. I think it's funny they still have Greg on this IMDb, which is so funny.
Was he ever on, not to derail anything, but what did you ever see Greg?
No, never met him.
Have any idea what happened to him?
I think he just didn't want to do it, man. I don't know the full story, but and I know he's even going to like screenings of Big Shark and like making appearances, and which is kind of confusing to me. But yeah, I think he just didn't want to do it. I remember Tommy being on the phone with Greg at one point during production, and Greg was like upset that he wasn't there. Like he was a little bit like upset that he had chosen not to do the movie. Okay. And I really don't know why he didn't do the movie, to be honest with you. But I'll say like Isaiah Laborde, who is also a producer in the movie, who is his best friend Tim.
Yes.
I think you guys even mentioned this, but like he was, what's like a good analogy? He was like, imagine Tommy being like a toddler who's like just learning to walk, and the dad is just there sort of like making sure they don't go over steps and they're not like hitting sharp objects.
That
and
for
whatever
sure comes
like,
across.
Off screen and on screen, you know, like there's every scene had, when we went to go shoot it, had an objective. We're going to start, this is why we're here at this restaurant. We're going to meet this waiter who's going to give us a reference to go get a pig somewhere. And that's the objective. And whatever happens in between there is kind of like free game. But Isaiah was always the guy going like, no, like this is where we're going. You know, like let's recorrect the scene and give it a point. You know, and he'll never. If you guys interview him at some, or if anybody interviews, he probably won't tell this story. But he has a very interesting story of how he met Tommy, which was Isaiah used to be a PA in LA, just trying to be an actor and like make it in movies and whatever. And I don't know, I think he wasn't like homeless, but he was like living in like a weird situation where like, I guess sometimes he was living in his car, or he was like kind of like couch surfing or whatever. So he had this gym membership in LA where he would go take showers and like work out and then, you know, whatever. And he would always go like really late at night, and he would go in like the sauna. And this was like back in the day when like, I guess The Room had just come out.
Oh, so this is a while ago.
This is like a long time. He's known Tommy for over a decade. I mean, longer than probably 15 years. He was in the sauna one day, and I just picture it like a movie where like the steam kind of clears, and he sees this like long black-haired guy like just like sitting in the sauna, and then he kind of like swoops his hair back, and he's like, "Oh, that's that guy from that billboard on Onset." He went over there and started just chatting him up, and they became friends. And he was always like, "Tommy, like, you got to make another movie. We can make movies in Louisiana like so easily. Like the tax incentive is crazy, and like, you know, like I know all the crew and whatever." He did this for like a decade, dude. Like just staying in touch with them, being like, "Tommy, we can." And then eventually they made the trailer, and then eventually he convinced them like, come to New Orleans, like make the movie. He was even like in the old trailer. So like Isaiah's been in this game for a long time. But he met him in a sauna at a gym in LA, way back in probably 2008 or something, you know?
Like Isaiah is kind of the voice of the people, I feel like, in that regard. Yeah. I think a lot of fans of The Room would have been pushing, like, do the next thing.
Yeah, Ashton Lee, who plays like his girlfriend too, is like amazing, you know?
Yeah.
She got it. She got what was going on to a degree, you know what I mean? And she knew of Tommy, but she wasn't like obsessed with The Room or whatever. But like,
yeah,
to her, it was like it was another acting gig, and like, you know, she's like a working actress. You know, she'll do a Subway commercial, and now she's starring in a fucking Lifetime movie, and then she's playing Tommy's girlfriend. Like, she's just like a working actress.
She's part of what makes that scene on the balcony so freaking funny. Yeah. You know, like it's Tommy, yes, but it's also Isaiah. It's also her. Like all three of them are like firing on all cylinders in this very odd way. I mean, I think someone might hear me say that and then watch the scene and be like, okay, but it's a little weird. But it seems like everyone got the sense of humor that was required, or at least was able to kind of manage their way through it, and yield a result that's really funny in the end.
Just like manicness. That was the goal. You know, at least for her, is to be like unhinged, you know. But also like Tim's girlfriend Erica was like, I think to her it was much more of a big deal. Like she doesn't, she's still trying to like push through. And it's so funny. She'll go to like all the screenings too. I'm sure maybe you've been there to one where she was there or something. But
oh, really?
She goes to all these. Yeah, she loves it, man. I think like, dude, my favorite though is this guy named Wayne, who was Captain Joe.
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
Big guy with cowboy hat
with the big hat.
That guy was awesome.
Again, I'm like, how? Like, where do these people come from? I never asked anybody like, how'd you get into this or whatever. But I think Captain Joe was like an actual firefighter. So he like, when we had to burn the house down, like I think he kind of like organized a lot of it, and kind of like a safety guy on set. But he would show up every once in a while and do a scene, and it was so many different like little bit people do. Like the guy who got beat up, what was his name?
The guy that they make fun of for.
Yeah. He gets beat up in the first, and he was so good, dude. Like he showed up and like really committed, and Raul's there like punching the shit out of him, and then he makes like a cameo at the very end. I don't know, is there like a scene, again, I haven't seen it screened yet, is there a scene where there's like a second line band like walking in front, like okay,
it's so, at the end,
like Caleb's like in that crowd, like for some reason, I think they ran out of extras, so like they brought Caleb in. I'm like, y'all just beat this shit. And now he's like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, dude, the cast was like kind of incredible, I think, for what it was, you know.
I completely agree. I am so happy to hear that, you know, you have nothing but positive things to say about everybody, because I think that with something like this, there's so much room for something to go wrong.
And shit went wrong. Don't let me say what I'm not saying. Tons of shit went wrong. You know, I think the whole movie was kind of like a rock rolling downhill and just like
unraveling constantly.
There was only a couple times where I was like, "Oh, this is dangerous," you know, and not anything that was like life threatening per se, but like when we were shooting the pig scene where it like explodes and stuff, there was some absolutely just unhinged moments where I'm like, what are we doing? You know, have you guys ever heard of this show called Swamp People?
No.
It's this famous sort of New Orleans show where there's these people who live in the swamps, like on the water. And Isaiah had maybe he had just met, he like lives in that area. He like met this guy named Shelby, who's like the main character of this show called Swamp People. If you look it up, it's an amazing show. You're like, these people aren't real, but they're fucking real, dude. And we were shooting out there like overnights. I had like M18s and like all these lights, like trying to create like moonlight. Yeah. And there's just like people who live in the water, and they kept like coming into frame, like on their you could hear engines coming in like from like boats and stuff, because they're like, what the fuck is going on? And then all of a sudden we hear this like insanely loud gunshot. Jesus and Christ. I like look up, and it's Shelby shooting at these people at this boat. Just going like, get the fuck away, they're trying to shoot. And he's like shooting at them with a fucking shotgun, and you're like, fuck is going on? Because we were shooting on guy Shelby's like barge. So like all those water scenes are like we're kind of like on a solid surface, and they're kind of like motoring around. But there was like all these people coming into the back of the frame, and we had to like stop shooting. And eventually he starts like fucking shooting a shotgun at him. And we're like, Shelby, it's not that serious.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, well, that was the only moment on the set where I'm like, I think I want to leave. Like, I think I need to get out of here. Someone's about to
that's one of those, what am I doing?
Wild West right there, dude.
That's pure chaos. I do want to go back, because you made me think of something. It makes sense now, but while watching the movie, it opens up with a house on fire. Yeah. And I think that my first thought is, how the hell is Tommy doing this? And I think it never occurred to me to really put too much thought into that question until you said that we had a fire safety guy. Did you just burn a house down? What was?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Again, sort of like film school 101. Find the house that's abandoned, that someone wants to sell the land, and you're going to offer to like burn it down and clear all the rubble for free. Yeah. And in the area that we were, that's like really valuable, that's
normal. Yeah.
It's normal. So we found a house where the owner was like, it was abandoned, but it was like just set up enough inside where you're like, okay, this is like someone who used to live. Crazy. You know what I mean? So we showed up at night, or we showed up like during the day, and then we kind of blacked out some rooms. And me and Isaiah had built these, they're called torches or whatever, but it's basically like a piece of pipe that is attached to propane, and it has holes in the pipe.
Right.
And that way you can basically like a stove or something. Yeah. You turn on the propane, you light them all, and you can like crank the propane, and you get these like really big sort of flames. So we shot in the house for like a long time. All these scenes where they're coming in, they're grabbing the kids, and the wall falls on them and shit. And we just kind of like had these flames like in the foreground and like outside the windows, and then just like hazed the whole thing so it looked like smoke. So we shot inside of it for a while, probably like 4 hours or so. And then we go outside, and I'll send you guys pictures of this. It's like
please do. Also, any extra material you have, I would absolutely love. Oh, yeah.
And then we like all came outside. We're like, all right, there's like a fire department behind us, because they had to light the actual fire. And we told them basically like, okay, start it over here because we do need to shoot them running out of the house at one point, you know?
Right.
So we needed like the house to be on fire, but not like where they couldn't get close. Because I don't know if you ever seen a house on fire.
Not full blaze, no.
You can't get close to it. It's insanely hot. like you have to literally stay like 100 feet away, otherwise your face is just burning.
Yeah.
So we kind of started it in the back, shot a scene where they're running out of the front really quickly, and then backed up, did all the news reporter stuff, and then got all this like really intense like slow motion footage of them like coming out and like going to their knees, and the house is just like in flames behind them. But yeah, like the Ponchatoula Fire Department set that fire to that house for us for free. And
that is so dope.
We shot it.
Yeah.
I guess in my head, I watched it and I assumed, oh, this has to be some compositing. This has to be, but it doesn't make sense for Tommy. Like now that I'm like actually saying it out loud, like that's not Tommy's MO. I feel like this tracks so much more with him is just lighting the house on fire. Did he ever consider a safer or like more do it in post option or?
No, dude. I think he also wants to be great, you know? And I think he's a cinephile in his own right, where like he loves Nolan and Spielberg and like, you know, these great filmmakers. And he would say that to where I would bring up stuff like, okay, Tommy, we can like lose, you know, in VFX, we can like do this. But also like a lot of all the shark stuff is VFX, you know?
Yeah.
So there's like certain things you just can't not do, whatever. But, you know, you'd bring stuff up and he'd be like, we're not making Mickey Mouse movie here. Like, we're making fucking real movies. Like, he'd say that, and you just gotta go, like, cool. Like, unless it was, like, really unsafe. But, like, in that instance, you know, I think he was like, if they're gonna let me burn a house down, oh, fucking, why would I spend money on VFX?
That is amazing.
And the way that I'll tell you, like, another quick story about the way, because I had that experience where, like, Tommy just called me out of the blue. And the guy that originally showed me the room is this guy named Landon Cox, who is a good friend of mine, and he's a VFX artist. He lives in Dallas. And very early on, he was like, Tommy came up to me and we're talking about like how to shoot the shark and what would it look like and whatever. And I was like, have you hired a VFX artist yet? And he was like, no, do you know anybody? And I was like, yeah, I know a great one.
Sweet.
So he's sitting next to me, like in between a scene, and I'm like, let's call my buddy Landon. And I just gave him like that experience that I had with where I called him and I just like very quickly was just like on the phone. I was like, he's like, hello? He's like, hey Landon, I don't have a lot of time, but I have Tommy Wiseau sitting here who wants you to do the VFX version of the movie. Can you talk to him for 2 minutes? And he's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, right.
And I give the phone to Tommy. He's like, hi, how are you? And very quickly, he started texting. I like called him on Tommy's phone, but he started texting my phone. He was like, are you fucking serious? And I was like, yes, dude, it's Tommy Wiseau. And then I took a picture of him and sent it to Landon to just prove it.
Yeah.
And then you can just tell, like, on the other side of the phone, there was like a very he was like, no, I'm serious.
Yeah.
I have to do this. Like, I'm your guy. Whatever the cost, like, I don't care what the budget is.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this for you. It's going to be great. And he did all the VFX for the entire movie by himself.
That is actually incredible. My next question, and this is probably quick, and I think I know the answer to it, is with the shots of the shark and the VFX shots, how much prep was put into, you know, because you think of like big Hollywood movies, theoretically you have like pre-visualization where you're really planning out, okay, here's the shark, and sometimes they'll have a tennis ball. Was there any like kind of forethought, or what was the planning process for some of the VFX shots?
I did say he knows the answer.
I've shot a good number with like commercial stuff and like movie stuff. Like I've shot a good amount of VFX stuff to know how to not get a phone call from a VFX artist going like, you've absolutely fucked me. You know what I mean? So some of it is, and there's like little things where you're like, if I could not move the camera and I shoot a plate and then I shoot the actors, like you just always do that. Like they're always going to ask for a plate. They have to cut out people and it makes their life much easier. I would say for the way that Tommy did it he was even more intense about having options than I even was. Until there's just moments where you're like, I think that's going to work. I don't really know. I think in terms of like framing and stuff, there's a lot of like drone stuff when they're driving where we're just right above them. And you're just like, I'm going to leave enough space for something back here. I don't know exactly what else I can do besides that. And again, I haven't seen a version of the movie with all the VFX stuff in it. You guys have seen it.
Yeah. Oh, well, they're quite impressive, actually, like unironically.
Well, I mean, and especially knowing that one person did them.
Yeah.
It makes it even more so.
Yeah. Because again, your mind runs wild with stories or with like, how is this done? My brain is like, did he just find somebody? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
He just, asked around who he knows and one guy did it. That's pretty crazy.
When you signed on to the project, obviously you were a fan, but were you in any way intimidated by the stories of the like 2 to 3, I think, cinematographers that worked on the room that he just cycled through?
No, and I would say because I was coming in as like he had already gotten rid of one, right? I knew that.
Yeah, right.
It very quickly didn't work out. And I think, like I said earlier, dude, I went in on the first day being like, I know this is going to be tough, but I'm going to choose to fucking like be here for him, where I think a lot of his, whether it was other cinematographers or even just like crew members or whatever, because there were a couple of people that he let go, even people from my crew that he ended up letting go. And it was because they didn't have the right intentions, I think they became overwhelmed with the style in which we were making this thing. And there were so many things that's like a normal production would like, take a given scene where you're like, okay, we're going to do the master because that's the most amount of lights that we're going to need to light this thing is going to be in this master. And then we're going to move in and then we can kind of shape the light or whatever. Where we would try and do that, but Tommy would come in, he'd be like, no, I want to start on this close-up. And you're like, why? And he's like, because this is like the main part of the scene. And I want the emotions right here. And you just got to be like, okay. And sometimes we'd shoot a wide and then we go into close-ups and he's like, oh, we got to go back and do that. And you have to redo all the shit. Mm-hmm. And you just got to be okay with it, So I knew, and it's really just my personality type where like, it's not just Tommy. Like, even if I'm working on a commercial thing for Walmart or something, like I'll go into that and it's not the most exciting thing I've ever done. It's not the most like, it's not like cinematic fucking masterpieces or anything, but I'm going to go in there. I'm going to serve these people. And that's just how I was brought up. That's how my parents raised me. It's like, if you say yes to something, you have to do it this way, and that's just how I went into it. So I knew I'm good with people too, especially hard people. I'm like very good with. If people don't like somebody, that's usually, it's like a target for me where I'm like, I'm going to make this person feel like they're my best friend. And it's not like malicious at all. I like the challenge of working with hard people. So by the end of it, I kind of took on a lot of there's even moments where like, everything would be totally chill. It'd be 3 a.m. in the French Quarter. It's fucking cold. And everybody like, it's just like waiting for them to get their shit together or whatever. And all of a sudden, Tommy would just start yelling at people to like do their job. And you're like, Tommy, we're kind of waiting on you, dude. Like, and he's like, no, like you don't understand. Like we've been ready for this long and like whatever. And we're like, yeah, we're actually just waiting on you. So there was like a couple times where like I would like kind of like go to the crew and like wink at them a little bit. I can't really wink, like, but I would like kind of be like, just let me do this, guys. and then he'd kind of like come around a little bit, and I would start yelling at the crew and let's fucking go, guys. Like, you guys are just dilly-dallying over here. Like, let's fucking like move this shit, please. And he'd be like, that's it, Christian, you got it. and I just had to like reduce like his Tommyisms. Like, I'd figure out ways to like make it fun for the crew, because like we're kind of making fun of him, but it's also like we're just like, I gotta try and like chill this thing out. So like I'll take some of this on myself, make Tommy feel good that I'm like pushing the crew, but I just winked at them, and it's like this weird middleman position, you know? We're like, but no, I was never afraid that like I was gonna get fired or anything until the very end where we finished production and I'm like working on the edit. That's a completely different story.
I almost forgot about it until you mentioned it, but there were a couple scenes that were filmed underwater. What was that like?
Those were like the 2 most professional days on set, for sure. We ended up hiring this underwater photographer from Nat Geo who like drove down from Onset, to come and do this underwater stuff. And Tommy showed up early the first day, which he never shows up early. I think at the end of it, and this is just one of like it's in the room, like it's in the disaster artist. It's just a part of his thing. Yeah. But we ended up like calculating how many days that we spent with him just being late. And I think at the end of production, it was something like 5 or 6 days of him just being late. Like if we were shooting during that time, we would have had 5 more days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was pretty regular hit for him to show up 3 hours late, 4 hours late, whatever. And we would have to like design scenes without him so that the moment he got there, we were just jumping into something. So a lot of times we would design scenes waiting for him, and then he'd show up and be like, no, none of this. Like, I'm the fucking director. You're the fucking cinematographer, and I'm doing it this way. And we're like, Tommy, we're just trying to help. Like, yeah, we couldn't get in touch with you. Like, that was a lot of the days. But for the underwater stuff specifically, he came in early because he had never scubaed before.
Oh, really?
I don't think he really knew how to swim, if I'm honest with you.
Oh my Lord.
Interesting.
So he came in early, and they had a instructor there that was teaching him how to swim with scuba gear, and he wanted it to look really, really... He was like a professional actor, dude, where he was like, I don't know how to do this. Make me look correct, and I'm going to show up early. So he came like 3 hours early, and then shot for 12 hours or whatever, and it's all this underwater stuff. Those 2 days were the only 2 days where I thought to myself, I need to say something, because I think Tommy might actually die.
Holy shit!
Wow. Because he is older. Nobody knows how old he is. If I had to guess, I think he's in his late 60s, early 70s. If I had to guess, I don't know. Yeah. And he did 2 12-hour scuba days, like being in the water with oxygen, and it's hard, dude. Like you have a lot of weight on your back. You're also going down in the water. It's just a lot of shit. And then he finished, and then immediately went on a plane back to LA. Which I don't know if you've scuba dived before or anything, but you're not supposed to fly after like no less than like 24 to 48 hours after you go.
Yeah, you can literally give yourself the bends. Yeah,
because you there's too much oxygen in your blood and whatever. And there was like a moment on the second day where he came up and we went to lunch, and he was just in the corner, dude, just like going through something, and everybody was like a little bit. I was like, we might need to call a paramedic or something just to like check him out. But he was just like absolutely spent. And dude, just like imagine, those were like the last couple days that we shot on the movie too. We like saved them for last. If he is in his late 60s, early 70s, doesn't matter. But that dude he shot every single day. There wasn't a day that we didn't shoot without him. From at least 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. every single day. And he was riding people. Like there's an immense amount of energy that the guy has.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those underwater days were like fairly easy because I wasn't shooting. I thought for a little bit he was going to make me like scuba dive and
get in the water.
And I was like, guys, you don't need to hire an underwater guy. Like they have the fucking system. He actually ran a cord up to like a monitor. So I was watching him with the AC who was like pulling focus, and I could like talk to him like, okay, a little less headroom. All right, now pan right. And they would all, so it was a very easy 2 days for me, but afterwards I was very, that was the only time I was like a little concerned, you know.
That's just mind-boggling that someone of his age is putting himself through that multiple days in a row. It's I mean, scuba diving, we always joke that we'll do basically anything for movies, but like, I think there's a certain point where after the second day of it, you're giving yourself the bends. You might, crazy.
Whatever we got's good enough.
Whatever. You reach the point where it's like, can you just reuse shots?
And I think we probably did in the edit, I'm sure. But like, also the more scarier thing than them scuba diving and like shooting that whole thing is Isaiah, Tim, and Tommy. Those motherfuckers swam in the Mississippi River. Like for a show, which is like an absolute no-no. Like you do not do that. There's people that die in the Mississippi River on like kayaks and shit every single day because the currents are just so strong. And especially where we were shooting, like in New Orleans, there's this bend that happens, which is like it's the strongest current in all of the Mississippi River, going all the way up to the top of North America. And right here is the strongest current. And people die there all the time. And I was like, please don't fucking get in the water. And this is also kind of Isaiah's like MO. He's like, we're just going to go right there. We're just going to go right there. And I'm like, just don't do it, please. Like for me, I don't want to be filming Tommy Wiseau's death. Like I was literally dumb.
Yeah.
And they ended up getting in the fucking Mississippi River, dude, and survived. I don't know how they did that.
If it's the shot I'm thinking of, that's a great shot of them like walking away from camera and like descending into the water. If that's a great shot too.
Yeah. Then we cut into like the underwater stuff that we shot later, you know, to make it feel like it was there.
That's awesome.
That was the one shot of them going in the water where it's like, oh, Tommy got in to the scuba gear and he went into the water, which we didn't know at first.
We all assumed that it was a stunt double because like we were sitting there watching it thinking, of course, 60 to 70-year-old Tommy Wiseau, we don't want him to go in the water. Like
I wouldn't want to go in there. I'd get someone else to do it and put a wig on. Crazy.
I think that was maybe talked about as an option. And Tommy was very quickly like, no fucking way.
He's like Tom Cruise would go in the fucking water.
Harrison Ford would go in the water. Well, almost done.
I'll sit here all night, guys. I don't have no rush on this shit. This is the only time I'll ever get to tell these stories, probably. So like, I'll sit here all night. I don't give a shit.
Well, you can ask your question first because my question is more like, why us?
I mean, very quickly, like you guys. One, I was laughing my ass off the entire. It was just so well done, and you guys gave way too much fucking attention to this movie that like only certain people will understand why you love it so much, you know?
Yeah.
And I've never seen the movie. Like I edited the movie, but like I've never gotten to see it in theaters with the crowd and hearing people's reaction to it. I just know the pain that we went through to make it. So to hear you guys say how well received it was and love it that much was like kind of a shock to me. It was the first time that somebody had sent it to me. Like one of the producers on the movie sent it to me, and I watched the whole thing. I just laughed my ass off, dude. I was like, just hearing you guys try and guess like what was real and what was the meaning behind the madness and shit, and I'm just like,
for the record, there's nothing you could say that'll make us not think that there's something going on.
Yeah.
Like, we'll always have that belief in our heart somehow.
Yeah, something death of the artist.
You wanted to kind of maybe talk about it in depth off the air, but is there anything you do want to say here about the editing process and just how that went in general?
I think the editing process was a lot of me constantly trying to stop myself from trying to make sense of things. Because I think as an editor, you're presented with so much footage of scenes that don't connect to each other in any way. And then figuring out how to make it watchable from just like they're on a fire and then they're getting this award and then they're drunk and then, now this guy's fighting and they save. Okay, that whole thing makes sense. I can get behind that. And then, the way that he wanted to do it was like, we're editing as we go so that we could figure out if we were done with the movie. You know what I mean? And there was a lot of times where I'm like, okay, Tommy, like there's a scene where there's like this Oracle character that gives them this map. For like the shark breeding grounds or whatever. That was entirely my idea. And I had to sell it to Tommy because I'm like, Tommy, like, we need a scene that gives them, we keep talking about the plan, but there needs to be like a moment where the plan gets like I don't know what in like a story form, like what they would call this, like turning point or whatever. It's like gotta be like a turning point where you guys like get help from an oracle or like somebody helps you figure out how to defeat this thing or whatever. Because they just keep talking about the plan, but it was never ever said what the plan was or where the plan came from or why the plan. And we were editing the movie and I'm like, look, right here, I think you need something like this. Like someone needs to give them something, a map to the breeding grounds or whatever. And he's like, oh, okay, I like that. So we would fit it into like the next scene, the next shooting week or whatever. And we go to shoot it and he like changes it enough to where like that scene like doesn't really need to be there at all. Like the way that it gets played out in the movie, like, yeah, it was a great idea. I think in terms of like trying to have a solution or whatever. Mm-hmm. But there was never like the way that they actually acted out the scene. And I think the way that it played out, like that scene didn't really need to be there, but I think it kind of just added to the chaos of it all. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Adds to the experience for sure.
Yeah, it was a ghost, right? Or some like
he fucking disappeared for some reason.
He disappears.
Literally. It's such a bizarre, and I think it adds to the magic of it 100% because it's just one of those moments where you're like, this movie's already off the rails, and then a ghost gives him a map to shark eggs, and you're just like, was that a ghost? What?
Yeah. And it never comes back.
Never gets explained.
It never comes back, and we loved it.
Yeah.
Well, you do hear, I think you hear his voice at the end, maybe, where they're like riding through the bayou, and he's like, that old man voice comes back in. He's like, oh, the breeding grounds or whatever. I don't know if maybe they took that out or something, but
we'll have to find out.
We're gonna find out soon.
We're gonna find out soon, yeah, because I don't remember that happening. But at the same time, it's hard because someone recently commented something like, "Oh, why didn't you talk about this?" And I was like, "Well, we've only seen it once, and we were just so focused on like." Just trying to make sense of the questions we had. Yeah. And then it's like, the more you talk about it, the more there's like, oh, wait, but what was the guy with the shark eggs that gave him a map? Okay, yeah, there's that layer too. There's the pigs. there's the fact that the fact that he psychically predicts that a big shark is going to attack New Orleans in the beginning.
Right. Dude, like, well, that's one thing I was going to ask you guys, because you guys have seen like the newest version, but he's in the canoe with Sophia, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
And he doesn't see a shark.
There's no shark.
So he says he sees a shark.
He sees a shark, but there is no VFX.
There is no shark in the scene. Yeah.
Is there like a shot of like something underwater or something?
Nothing.
No, at least nothing that's readable as a shark. Like if there is, like maybe we'll be looking for it. Yeah, if
it's cinematic brilliance because you don't know if he saw a shark or if
I think it adds to the drama of the following scenes because he's arguing with his friends about it, and you're like, well, I don't know if it's real either. I don't know.
They never showed us if it was real or not.
Yeah, I tried to convince him to add like an underwater shot, where you see the shark like silhouetted go by or some shit. I'm like looking back, and I'm so glad he decided not to.
No, I think it's genius.
It's genius.
You're like, is this guy demented?
Yeah.
Like, is that what is kind of how it feels?
That's what it feels like to us, yeah.
But that's the thing. Like the whole time you're questioning it, you're like, does he just have a delusional mind? Are we seeing through his delusional perspective? He keeps saying that he saw a shark. He's Tommy Wiseau, so he's probably right, but I have no idea.
We could not or would not have it any other way.
The payoff is what sells it. It's that shot of him. They're in the living room after a night of drinking.
He's like, I told you,
and
it's so good. It's a great line.
I think we were laughing for a good point in the movie, but that was the first time I think we howled at the movie. We lost our minds.
In tears. It's such a funny again, like I don't think I will ever get that funny of a performance from any actor I ever work with. Like that is
too good.
That is too good. It's too good.
It's too good.
One of the questions I had is, Tommy's directing, and from what you've kind of said, it sounds like he wanted to make sure that there was no question of who was in charge. But is there anyone behind camera giving notes on performance, or is he checking every tape? Like, it's you? So, if you're able to, what's that kind of look like?
And again, I want to be very political about this. I don't want to say that Tommy didn't direct this movie in any way. But there's just limits to an actor directing, producing, writing, and starring in his own movie. If we had allowed a system where he would do a take and then we could pull it up for him and he would just watch it and then go and like correct himself, we would never finish. The movie would not be done. So there's a lot of moments where we'll do a scene or whatever, and he'll just look at me afterwards and go, how was it? In that moment, I do become sort of the assistant director in that moment where I'm like, I think, at this point, you're saying this, I think you need to be quicker about it. And okay, let's do another one. And then Tim, like when you come here, like the blocking's not right. Like I think you need to be a little bit more this way so that I can cover it this way. Very much just like a normal, directing style. But again, always trying to go back to him and be like, Tommy, like, what do you want this to feel like? Like, is this a humorous moment to you or is it serious? If it's supposed to be serious, then you guys are going down the wrong path,
Yeah.
And trying to correct it. But yeah, a lot of the times they would finish the scene and he would just look up at me and be like, how was it? It's a lot of, it's like little things I remember too, where like sometimes he'd like say the last line and you need like a little moment where you're like in the scene, but you don't, the scene is ended, but you need like a couple seconds for the editor to like not have to chop it off, Yeah. And he would just like say the last, like, he would be like, I told you so. How was that? Like immediately like, and be like, okay, how was it? And
that's not
my goal is just keep doing it, dude. Keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Yeah.
A lot of the scenes were shot in series. We would not cut because if we cut, he would want to watch it,
Right.
So we're like, okay, guys, we're going to do a series. And we would do a series for 15, 20 minutes sometimes where we're just doing the same line over and over and over again. Because that would be the only way that I could, at the end of it, be like, we got 20 takes of it, Tommy. You're good.
Yeah.
And then sometimes he would like go, we'd dump the footage and he'd look at the takes or whatever. And he'd be like, we didn't get it. And I'm like, bro, you got it. I promise you. We can move. But that was like going back to the editing process. Like that was a lot of it was like, again, trying to like play sort of devil's advocate and be like, okay, Tommy, I'm going to bring this up, but ultimately it's your decision. Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, there's like 2 scenes in the movie where all 3 of them are like walking in the French Quarter and they're drunk, and he says the same story twice.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yeah, that happens.
Yes.
He's saying the exact same story, exactly the same way, but they're in different days, different clothes, whatever. And we shot that originally because he didn't like the first version of it. So he's like, let's shoot it again. And then when we finished it, he was like, oh no, we just put both scenes in the movie. And I was like, but you're saying, it's the same scene, like the same script. What are you talking about? He's like, we let audience decide which one is better.
What?
See, he's a genius.
He is
He's a fucking genius, bro. He's a fucking
Christian. This is where.
Who are we to judge?
Not to push my own theory too much, but this is where, like, I think that around then is when I started looking at it being like, this is exactly what it feels like to actually be drunk, because you do just tell the same story twice, and like sure. your friends don't tell you that you already told it because they're also drunk and they barely remember it when you told them that 5 minutes ago. That is so funny. Let audience decide.
That makes me so happy to hear.
We'll have to decide this time, dude.
Yeah, we'll have to decide. Now that I know that Tommy's intention is that we need to decide, I need to decide which one is better.
And I will say this, a part of it, it's such a small thing, but it meant so much to him. Because imagine me he's literally right here on this chair, right here. And like, looking at this screen right here going like, Tommy, it doesn't, like, they say it twice in a row, and he's like, let the audience decide which one is better. And like, that still doesn't really make sense or whatever. And you just gotta go like, cool, we're gonna keep both of them in, and that's my job is like to just say what I have to say. If he doesn't agree, then that's it, you know. Like,
and then it is fucking what it works.
And it fucking works. And you're like, I don't know how to make movies, Tommy. Like,
I mean, yeah, it's something that, you know, we say in the beginning of our review that like I'm not joking when I say that The Room is one of my favorite movies of all time. Like, it's not, I'm not saying it ironically. I don't watch The Room and think, oh, this is no, I love The Room. And I think that it's such a valuable lesson. And it's what the biggest success of Big Shark is to me, is that like Tommy is just living proof that the rules of filmmaking don't actually matter if you are entertaining and you have like screen presence and heart and like you're able to just like, you know, make the end product entertaining and fun. It doesn't matter if like you use the same scene twice and just do 2 different takes of it. It can still end up being really unique and funny and interesting, maybe weird, maybe baffling, but
beyond question for sure.
Yeah.
Any word on when we can actually get Big Shark, like in physical media at all?
Like a physical copy of it.
Yeah. Or I guess to rephrase the question, like, you know, as an insider, do you know it, like what the like I guess distribution strategy is? Because
normally Tommy he has, when he goes around, he has his own. He sells Blu-rays and DVDs of The Room and posters and stuff. So I assume it'd be something along those lines, but I just wanted to ask.
Tommy's so erratic sometimes that like what he says one day maybe changes the next. I don't know. But I do know before we even shot the movie, he turned down millions and millions of dollars for the production of this movie. I'm talking like Netflix, Amazon, like every single streamer that you can think of wanted a part of this movie. And we're going to pay for the production of it. We're going to pay him a lot of money. It was going to be a real movie. And I don't know if it was like they backed out or Tommy was just like, whatever. But in my opinion, I think because they would own some of it, he was like, fuck you, owning any of my shit. I own all my stuff. I do know that to be true, that people have been throwing money at him for a long fucking time to make this movie. Or to make any movie, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And he's always turned them down. And because it's an ownership thing at the end of the day for him. So in terms of Big Shark being distributed, I would say it will never happen, purely because if you could just watch it on Netflix, or if you could watch it on HBO or whatever, I think he understands enough about his market and his sort of allure that if you just make it widely available, then he loses all the power of what it is, and specifically what he is, you know? I think he loves the screening process so fucking much, and he's so good at it that I don't think he would ever stop doing it. I don't think he would ever make it so that anybody could see this movie. I really don't.
Yeah.
I don't, you know, I could be wrong, but my hunch would say that it's gonna be just like, can you get The Room on Amazon Prime or something?
It's not available to stream anywhere. I think he just sells Blu-rays and DVDs.
I think it's going to be like that for...
I still want a Blu-ray.
Another 3 years until he makes a movie or until he dies, you know? Like, I don't think he would ever give that up, in my opinion.
Just hearing that, like, mad respect for the dude. That is so cool.
We wouldn't turn down anybody.
Yeah, if someone offered me $5 for the rights of our movies,
like, oh, that's okay. Yeah, no, it's fine.
It makes sense, though. I mean, I think a lot of those companies just see Tommy Wiseau as a marketable IP, for lack of a better word. You know, he's someone that people want to spend money on,
and to be honest with you guys, I think the way that this movie got paid for was by him. I mean, I showed you these checks. Like, he would write checks from his bank account. Like, I think the way this movie got paid for and why we were shooting a week at a time is because, and I don't know this to be true, but this is my assumption, is he would shoot for a week. Hey, everybody, go and do 2 or 3 screenings and then come shoot another week. Pay everybody, and then go do another 2 or 3 screenings in Seattle or Colorado, or I know he went to Paris one time and then came back and shot some more. I think that's how he was paying for the movie, which again is like, I mean, mad respect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
That's one of the things that I think is really coming out in this talk is the dude has insane amounts of dedication to what he does.
Yeah.
I mean, even just like, you know, we're none of us are old. We're all around 30. And I get tired at 9:30 p.m., you know? But then you go to one of his screenings and he starts them at 10:30 and he's there answering questions until midnight, and it's just like he's the most alive person in the crowd. Throughout the shooting process, was it ever social as well as professional? Like, did he ever host any dinners, or was there any like hanging out outside of shooting?
No. Tommy is an extremely, extremely private person. And of course it's like part of his allure too. But it's very genuine. Where like, I remember we were just in the car one day on the way to set or something. And he's in the back seat and he's asking me like, oh, you know, I have 2 kids. He's like, Christian, how are your kids? I'm like, oh, they're doing great. My son's doing this and that. He's like, how old are they? He's like, oh, they're 6 and 5 and whatever. And I just kind of turn around. I'm like, Tommy, do you have any siblings? And he's like, don't ask me this question. Like, just something even as simple as that of like, Tommy, do you have any siblings? Like, whatever. He's like, I don't answer questions like that. Right after he was asking me about my fucking kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of moments like that where like he doesn't let anybody in. I remember even one day I was just trying to bring him like a hard drive of just like dailies or something. He would always come to my house, and sometimes like unannounced, and sometimes I would have my kids and whatever. But eventually I was just like, Tommy, like, I'll come meet you. You know, like, you're always coming over here. Let me meet you. And he was like, what do you mean? Like, come and meet me. I was like, where are you at right now? And he's like, that's private. I'm like, I'm just trying to bring you a hard drive. I was like, I can meet you at a coffee shop or something, you know? And he's like, no. I'll just get it from you tomorrow. I don't know, dude. He's just extremely, extremely private. And, you know, I have there's other things that I'll tell you guys offline, but like, there's some questions that people have about like certain Tommyisms that like I'm pretty sure I have a lot of the answers to.
Yeah.
But there's no hanging out with him. There's no like it's business, and then he goes back to his hotel. You don't see him again.
If that's where he even goes.
Yeah, I mean, does he go back to his hotel? I don't know.
You don't know.
Where is he?
Is he a vampire? Does he sleep in a coffin at night? You know, these are questions.
On one of the last weeks that we were shooting, he approached me. He was like, I'm doing another movie, and I want you to be the cinematographer for it. And can you guess what he was going to be? I mean,
was it Tommy Wiseau's Vampires?
Yeah, it was him as this Louisiana vampire. I'm not sure if they'll ever make
like
it.
That.
He was asked in the Q&A. Oh God, what did he talk about?
Oh yeah,
he talked about
someone asked him what's the next project, and he said he's working on something with brains.
Yes, he talked about brains for like 5 minutes. He's been talking about Tommy Wiseau's Vampires for literally a decade. Like the first time we met him, we were like, Tommy, when is the next movie? And it wasn't Big Shark when we talked to him back in 2014. It was Tommy Wiseau's Vampires. That was the next movie. And we were like, you know, as a lot of people have said, I'm sure, we were just like, make it, do it. So that's what, Tommy Wiseau's, because then that's also, I mean, I think a common fan theory is that he's secretly a vampire.
It was something to do with brain work and like using 100% of your brain.
Yeah, it was that. He was asked at our screening. I don't think any of us asked him this question, but it was like, what are you working on next? And he talked about brains for like, not like, it wasn't a pitch for a project. He just went into this like, did you know that you only use 10% of your brain or whatever? And he went on this whole like tirade about it. And he was like, that's my next movie. Is that? And we're like, oh, okay, brains. Yeah.
Sweet. I think it'd be a killer. Yeah, I think that'd be sick.
Yeah,
I think it would be sick too.
At this point, I'm so down for whatever.
Sold on anything.
Whatever his heart is set on is what he should do.
I want people like Tommy to be able to get to make their movies and tell their stories and be able to be weird. Because if every movie is made by normal people, then you end up getting a bunch of boring movies that aren't exciting. Like you need your Tommy Wiseau's, you need Yorgos Lanthimos, you need unique voices that are going to be giving you, even if it's not conventional. Because, you know, if I recommended my dad watch Big Shark, he would watch it and be like, "You're a moron. What has my son done with his life?" There's just something like unique about his filmmaking, and I think that hearing his process through someone that's like worked on it is kind of motivating in probably a what's the word, not a super healthy way for us, because we tend to have very similar ways of looking at movies, of just like, you know, we operate in low budget spheres, and we're often looking for just like the Duplass thing of like, what do we have? How can we make it?
Right.
You know, what can we turn this this real estate office meeting room look like? So it's cool to know that even you know, Tommy's kind of operating like that, I guess.
Did you say yes when he asked you?
I don't know. It depends on honestly what I'm doing. So I'm starting a new movie that we're shooting in the next couple months. Like I have my, like, that's I said in the beginning, but like, I'm not really a cinematographer, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a director. Like I do this for a living. Like, I'm trying to do that was one of the funniest interactions I ever had with Tommy, which like I showed up on set to shoot, and he was like, show me some things that you've done. And I showed him like the movie that I just came out with and whatever. And like, the movie is like an actual, like, it's widely distributed. Like, you can watch it. Like, and he watched the trailer and he was like, that's not that good. You know, like, just like ripping me, dude. And I'm like, cool, dude, whatever. Let me show you some other things. I showed him like a short film and whatever. And he's like, it's okay. But you can still have the job, you know, like, you're so good, whatever. So he would like never give any flowers out. But I was just like, at the end of it, there's two sides where I'm like, I could never do that again. And I got what I needed out of it. I got my experience with him, and like I said, like we still like text all the time, and like every time I go to LA, I'm texting him like, let's go grab lunch, whatever. And I don't need to do a movie, and I also want somebody else to experience that, you know, like
yeah.
But if he called me and he was like, "Hey, I need help. Like, I need this," I'll be there. Maybe not for 6 months like it was, you know, but for a period of time, I'll be there, you know.
Well, if he
even if I'm not credited in the fucking movie, it is what it is. You know?
Yet. Well, that was so. To be fair to Tommy, my impression that I got was the movie just ends, and I got the impression that, like, you know how you can set your in and out points in your timeline, and like if you hit export and you forget to set your out point, like it kind of just felt like he forgot to put the out point to where the credits are, because it just kind of ends and it feels so abrupt that I thought it was an editing mistake, honestly. Like I was like, oh, clearly they just forgot to export the version with credits, because it doesn't feel like, and there's no music, there's nothing. It's just like the MP4 stops, and it's just so weird. Caveat being, when we all watched, I think we all assumed, oh, there's probably supposed to be credits at the end of there, because of course there's supposed to be credits at the end.
Well, I think the final jury would be out if it's like on the Blu-ray, if the credits are on there, because he might just be having it for screenings, like just postponing the work.
Well, and my question would be, I've made credits before for our crappy movies. They take work. So I'm like, who's made?
That's the thing, is I made the credits for the movie. Like there are.
Oh my god!
Like, where are they then?
I can show you that there's this whole in credit scene where they're like dancing to the second line. And there's credits rolling. It's like we like framed it for the credit scene, and it's supposed to be there.
That makes so much sense.
Oh my gosh.
That celebration's there. Like all like I can picture the scene, and as you're like, yeah, there should be credits rolling past that.
So maybe I don't know. I don't think maybe he didn't want to credit certain people at this point. I don't know.
It's hard to speculate, I'm sure, because the mind of Tommy Wiseau is deep and cavernous, and it's easy to get lost if you don't follow the guided path.
I mean, it's true, because like I'm probably like the closest person who could like actually speculate about what happened, and I don't even know. I do know that there was a version, and it's sitting on my computer somewhere, where there's credits on this fucking movie, and it's like rolling credits, and it's beautiful, and it's like fun, they're dancing, whatever, and he just turned them off.
Is there a director's version? Is there a Wiseau cut of this movie that's 4 hours longer?
Yes, there is a Tommy Wiseau cut that I believe the runtime was 3 hours 20 minutes.
Oh my gosh. That sounds insane. I would buy that. I would
spend $300 on that.
Everybody says the same shit, and I'm like, no, you don't. But maybe you would. There's no scenes that we cut from the movie. That the version that you see, that's however long, 90 minutes, whatever it is.
Yeah. Good pace.
There's nothing cut scene-wise from the movie that's in the 2.5 hour version.
Okay.
The 3 hour version is literally just longer. Dialogue that's been cut out, or like confusion from, there's like, sometimes they'll go off on these tangents and whatever, and they'll come back. And the 90-minute version is the version that I like pushed for him. He was like, 3.5 hours is too long, obviously.
Yeah.
It needs to be 90 minutes. And I was like, Tommy, like, could we do are you okay with like 2 hours? People will sit and watch a 2 hour Tommy Wiseau movie, Yeah. Like, and he's like, no, it needs to be 90 minutes. If I think back correctly, it wasn't 90 minutes specifically. It was 97 minutes. He kept saying 97 minutes. Which is an hour and 37 minutes. Which
because
I'm like,
the film gods are telling him how long it needs to be.
Well, a lot of the process for editing was just me trying to get down to 90 minutes or whatever. Which actually, in my opinion, makes like a really watchable, like tight cut.
100%. I think
very well.
Yeah, the pacing of it is one of the things. A comedy should never be long. If you're sitting around once the hour 30-minute mark flies by, once the 90-minute mark flies by, you're like, okay, your time's running out. Yeah, we should be wrapping things up by that point. Right. If we told Tommy we talked to you, what do you think his reaction would be? Like, we are probably gonna see him on Saturday.
It's a great question. I think he would probably be like, if you just said we talked to Christian, he'd be like, who Christian who? And he'd be like, no, you're cinematographer on Big Shark or whatever. And he's like, oh, talking about what? What do you mean? Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, talking about Big Shark. We have a show and whatever. I think he would be not upset, but he'd be like, he would probably call me and be like, did you talk about the movie on my behalf? And I would be like, Tommy, yeah. Like, what do you want me to do? But you should try.
I have loved every interaction I've had with Tommy. And I mean, I hope that this is coming through. We're in the same camp as you. Like, we love Tommy and we want the best for him. And I couldn't bear Tommy being mad at me. So
No, I don't think he would be mad. I think he would be very interested to see it. He would ask you to send it to him for sure.
So we do try to focus our show on student filmmaking. Mm-hmm. And so we will sometimes give like feedback and we'll watch subscriber short films and kind of give like, you know, like friendly notes. We can kind of be critical assholes sometimes, but you know, it's all in the name of constructive feedback. So for that portion of our audience, like, you know, you are a successful director and DP. Do you have any, you know, kind of words of advice to someone who's trying to become a working director in the industry right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I tend to say the same thing to all younger filmmakers, and I steal this quote from Ira Glass, which this quote for some reason was like a big one for me, which I don't know if he coined it, but there's something called a gap where you get into a certain field of art because you have really good taste in it. You know, I'm sure you guys at 14 years old were like watching fucking E2 Mama Tambien and like all these like really like cinephile movies, and like you had like this real good taste for it, where you just had this ability to know what good movies were and what good movies weren't, you know?
Yeah.
And then when you try to go do those movies, you realize there's this gap between I have the taste for it, but I don't know how to get there. And the only way to get there is to fail at it a million times. And that's what I would say to my younger self. I would say this to anybody starting, is you have to fail at it, and you have to be okay with failing at it over and over and over and over and over again, because that's the only way that you shrink that gap. And then eventually when you start to make stuff and you're like, this isn't too far away from the things that I like, and your taste and your ability become much closer together. But the only way to do that is through failure, you know? My first career was in music. I started playing music at 14 years old. And I was like touring as a touring drummer when I was 16 and 17. And I have this ability to become really, really obsessed with something. So for a long time, it was music and drums. And that's what my drum teacher taught me in a different way, was like, you're going to suck for so many days. But you listen to really good music, you have really good taste, but you're going to suck for so long. And if you don't quit, then you win. So if I was to say anybody starting anything, but especially movies, if you don't quit, then you're going to be great. But a lot of people quit because it's really fucking hard. And you know that too. It's like, this is the hardest fucking art form, because you have to know all art forms. You have to know about art direction. You have to know about, you know, composers and how music works with certain colors and imagery and like color theory and all this shit. And you have to bring this all together and pretend like you know what the fuck you're talking about.
And you have to be a really good problem solver.
Right. And like, like looking at a puzzle and being like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to stare at this for as long as fucking possible until I figure it out. And I talk to a lot of really great directors, and that is a very common theme between great directors, is this ability to just not give up and be extremely obsessive and slightly delusional, you know, which I think any person in the film industry needs to be, for sure.
Yeah. You need to be able to at least believe in your own bullshit.
Yeah.
At least a little bit.
Yeah. You have to, you know, I always think that it's funny because there's an inherent narcissism to wanting to be like especially in one of the big, like above the line positions. If you want to be a director, if you want to be an actor, there's like a baked in level of you have to be a little bit of a narcissist in order to succeed. And not in a bad way. I don't mean that like in a disparaging way. You just have to like believe I am capable of doing it, and I deserve that. I deserve to be a director. And I think that that's hard because a lot of people can tend to, you know, just look at their first couple works and be like, I'm failing. I suck. Yeah. Like this, obviously I'm not cut out for this, but you have to be able to push through and look at that and be like, no, I'm better than this. This sucks. I don't suck. I'm awesome. You have to like kind of brute force your way through it. Like, no, this doesn't suck because I suck. It sucks because, well, I do suck, but there's things about it that I can change and become better at.
I do suck, but there's like this one part where I fucking nailed it.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like this one little thing. I did that really fucking well.
Yeah.
You know, and then take that and then learn from all the other 90% of it and just go, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to make my own passion projects so that I can fail on my own dime. And, you know, my friends will want to do it because they're bored, and you just keep fucking doing it. You know, I came from the documentary world, especially like I've probably made like 500, 600 films in my life.
Jeez. Yeah.
There's just, especially in the documentary world, like I'll get hired now just to go and run interviews for people. You know, because I've done so many fucking interviews. And I'll get flown out to just like the whole thing is already set up. You know, like there's a photographer, there's a director, and I'm just there to ask fucking questions. And because I've done it so many fucking times that I have a weird ability to go like into a space and figure out how to get like the most humanity out of this person.
Which I'm sure that was extremely useful working with Tommy.
Dude, like that's what I'm saying. It's part of my personality to just go like I'll be okay when I go home and I'm alone if I know that like I was rooting for somebody today. You know, and that sounds a little like hoity-toity, like tree huggery or whatever. It's not. It's like I could either go to set and be pissed all day and then go home and be even more pissed because I got to wake up the next day and go back to the same fucking shit. Or I can go into it and be like, this is the fucking best day of my life. I'm going to make this guy win. I'm going to perform as best as I can so that 3 motherfuckers in LA are watching this movie down the road and thinking it's, you know, the greatest fucking Tommy Wiseau movie ever made. And
that's my point. Number 1 of the year beats Oppenheimer.
Well, fuck Oppenheimer, dude.
Yeah, dude.
I'd rather see Barbie 12 times in a row. When we were shooting the pig stuff at night, Tommy was wearing this really specific neon hoodie. And I asked him about it. I was like, Tommy, like, where did you get that hoodie? He was like, wouldn't you like to know? And I was like, don't be a fucking hard ass, dude. He was like, you know what? I made this hoodie. I was like, what do you mean you made it? He's like, I fabricated it. Like he made the hoodie. He made the blank. And it had no branding on it. He didn't even have like a TW on it or anything. I asked him about it because it was like so fucking bright and it was like pitch black outside and you could just see him from like a mile away. I was like, Tommy, I really want to get one of those hoodies. So at the end of production, he gave me this. This is like the neon hoodie that he was wearing.
Oh, that is so cool.
That's awesome.
He printed this on the back of it.
Oh, dude, that is amazing. That is so awesome. Cool.
I'll be in LA in February, and whoever wants it, I'll give this guy to whoever it fits. This is yours, okay?
It fits me. You would part with that? That's such an amazing artifact to have.
I feel like it needs to go to a good home, and I feel like one of you guys would enjoy it more than I do.
Christian, I did want to ask. You are our first guest to ever be on our program. If you are ever in LA, would you be open to coming over and doing we do a react series? So we'll take, like I said, subscriber short films and kind of watch them and give feedback. Is that something that you'd be open to joining us for?
Of course, I'm there. For sure.
That would be so dope. I would shit
amazing.
my ass if you did that.
That'd be so
I gotta make that fucking Long Beach drive, but I'll fucking be there, dude.
It's not
that far.
bad. Do you have anything that you want to like shout out, promote? Anything you're working on right now? I know you mentioned that you got some TV stuff coming up in another movie.
Yeah, I did come out with my first real movie in December 2022. You can watch it everywhere, including Amazon Prime, Tubi, Apple TV, like all that stuff. It's called Presence. I also me and my buddy Jared Hogan run a podcast called Good the Podcast.
Good the podcast.
And it's very similar. We interview directors, friends of ours, and whatever. We've been doing that for about 10 years.
Oh, dang.
I'm just out and about, man. I'm just trying to make a living, meet some cool people, work with cool people. That's about it, But yeah, you can go to my website. It's christianmschultz.com and see everything I have on there.
Do you think that you'll be making it to any Big Shark screenings? Like, are you out? Do you think that's something you're ever going to brave or?
Yeah, I want to really bad. Simply to just watch it with the crowd, dude. I think it would be... I keep getting DMs and texts from people that I haven't seen in a long time that are making it out to screenings, and they're like especially like taking photos of like that scene that I'm in and like texting it to me, and I just like. But yeah, to answer your question, I would love to come to one. I just my schedule's never really matched up with when a screening was. I know that he was doing one at like a real dope theater in LA.
Well, Christian, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, like,
awesome.
I was absolutely flabbergasted. I think the first comment from anyone that worked on it came from Isaiah. And then we got like one or two more comments from a couple of other people I remember I was sitting, I was at a theater. We were watching a play. Me and my wife were going to see a theatrical play. And we were just like, oh my God, can you believe that these Big Shark people are actually watching our stupid little review? And then when you messaged us, I was just like, that can't be real. What? Like, DP, this is like the same thing that you said. I was like, no, this is a fake account. And I go onto your account. I was like, okay, this looks legit. Like, okay, then... Okay, so this is real. It was just such a surreal moment because we've never had something like that happen. So thank you so much for reaching out. It's really been such an amazing experience. And I am so happy to know that some of the people on the crew have seen it. And I genuinely do. I hope that we can get to meet a couple of the other people. I'd love to talk to some of the cast. But I mean, even so, this was such like...
This is great.
I don't think I could have asked for a more amazing person to talk to. So thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Thank you guys for doing it. I mean, you guys had there was not another review on it that was like comparable to y'all's. It was amazing. I had a blast watching it, which is why I reached out. It was like, there's some stories here that you guys probably need to hear. But yeah, y'all should talk to. I know Ashton Lee would love to sit with y'all. Also, I'm blanking on his name. Yeah, Mark Valeriano.
Yeah.
Mark would talk. He's in LA too. That would be.
Oh, that's dope.
Mark was the only person who had no idea who Tommy was before he started making the movie.
Wow.
Which is so surprising to me.
And he's in LA too. LA. Yeah, that's such a weird. I feel like Tommy's such like a LA icon.
Yeah, he's super funny. But yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. It was super fun.
Of course.
I hope you guys enjoyed our conversation with Christian Schultz. We're so grateful that he took the time and actually sat down and talked with us. This was our first time ever interviewing someone that's like an actual industry professional. So if this was something that you guys enjoyed, make sure that you're subscribed and leave us a comment. Let us know if you like the format. Let us know if you have any feedback. This was our first time ever interviewing someone. So yeah, put a comment, leave a like, do all that stuff. It really helps us out. We're super appreciative that you took the time and watched watch this video. And I hope to do more stuff like this in the future.